Well, we are the number one camp, more than anyone else, and you have to include Men of Valor joined unto us. But it came through Great Millstone. We are the number one camp that told you what the MOTB is. Well, like everything else, 401k, etc. it's all over, man. This push towards the digital dollar, and of course you got Trump threatening nuclear attack against Iran once again. Doubling down. Marjorie Taylor Greene reveals that, as you'll see in today's reports. I mean, we already knew about this a few months ago, but now it's just coming out and whistles being blown on it. But we told you before, right? Because we know things before they happen. That's how you know a prophet's been among you, right? Because we told you about these things, right? We don't just hear about something and not say anything. We report on it, and here's the report, man. Esau, it's going down, man. They're going to crash the system. They're going to usher in the new MOTB. You already know that the Israelis, the Lisa flock, Amalek, is taking over. So, I'm going to make sure this is recording before I get too much into it, right? Yeah, it's recorded. I'd hate to think that I lost all that. Anyway, here we are. BlackRock now owns all the gold. In case you thought that your retirement checks, your 401ks, like you had something to say about it, you're screwed.
But what if I told you that one of the largest, biggest financial decisions affecting your retirement may have just been made for you, and you probably didn't even know that it happened? Because right now, BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, is making some major changes to the way your retirement money is invested. And if you, by the way, have a 401k, you really need to understand what's happening here, because most Americans do not. It's sort of a set it and forget it mentality. So BlackRock now oversees roughly $14 trillion in assets, and a massive portion of the American retirement system is tied into funds that are managed by BlackRock and other Wall Street firms. Did you know that? Did you know that your retirement is tied to BlackRock? So one of the most common investments inside a 401k is something called a target date fund. You've probably seen these. When I started working at Fox News years ago, got my 401k set up, you logged into Fidelity at the time, and you'll see, very easy, they try to make it idiot-proof, where there's a big pie chart, and you choose when are you planning to retire. So retirement 2035, retirement 2045, retirement 55, whatever. And you click on it, that's when I'm going to retire, that's the fund that I'll get into, and then I can log out and go back to work. You basically tell Wall Street roughly when you plan to retire, and then the fund automatically manages the risk for you. Well, when you're younger, if you own more stocks, fine. Maybe you're younger because that's riskier, right? So you own more stocks. You're kind of in maybe AI investing or other, kind of riskier moves. Then as you get closer to retirement, theoretically, that fund that you chose becomes more conservative. Maybe it slides into ETFs or mutual funds or something. But it's set it and forget it. In fact, BlackRock says roughly 60% of 401k participants invest in these target date funds. So here's the part that most people don't understand. You aren't actually making those investment decisions. Someone else is. And BlackRock recently announced that it was changing the investment formula inside many of these target date funds. So what does that mean? Well, what that means is, for investors in their mid to late careers, roughly ages 45 to 60, BlackRock decided to increase the amount of money that's exposed to stocks. What? So their argument is that Americans are living longer, working longer, therefore they need greater investment growth to fund a longer retirement. And maybe they're actually right. BlackRock says its modeling shows that taking additional risk during those years could actually result in greater retirement wealth about 75% of the time. But think about what that actually means. You could be 55 years old, you could have spent 30 years building your retirement account, and then somebody sitting inside one of the largest financial institutions on earth, basically an extension of the federal government at this point anyway, which is BlackRock, they can just go in and decide what your retirement strategy should now take on. And it should take on more market exposure. Okay? So unless you're paying very close attention, you might never even realize it happened. But that's only actually part of the story, because Wall Street is also pushing something much bigger. Private markets are coming to the retirement accounts. So for decades, the typical 401k was largely built around publicly traded stocks and bonds. But BlackRock has been working to start introducing private equity and private credit into target date retirement products. And basically their proposed allocations could put about 5 to 20% of certain retirement portfolios into private investments, depending on your age. Now they argue that this could improve diversification, potentially increase returns. They are telling you that it's all about you. It's all good for you, of course. And they estimate that adding that private markets could produce about 15% more money over a 40-year retirement investing cycle. And again, maybe that's true. But private investments also introduce questions that every retirement saver should actually understand. They're generally less liquid, they're much harder to value, and they can be less transparent. Like most 401k plans are very opaque, very difficult to find out even what fees you're paying. So add in private equity, and they can actually have much higher fees than the simple index funds, because you don't even know your fees. It's try finding out how much you're actually paying to Wall Street inside of your 401k. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. And the federal government has been helping open this door. to BlackRock and these private equity. President Trump signed an executive order in August of 2025 directing regulators to expand access to alternative investments inside of the 401k. Private equity, private credit, real estate, digital assets. So a lot of people say this is democratizing investing. It's democratic. Okay. Well, who are the real winners here, actually, in all of this, right? So why should investors and institutions have access to investments that ordinary Americans can't buy? It's a fair question. Here's another fair question. Why are the largest financial institutions on earth suddenly so interested in gaining access to trillions of dollars sitting in Americans' retirement accounts? Remember during the George W. Bush administration, something he was pushing to the privatization of our 401k plans, and even also separately the Social Security plan? You could just have your Social Security check was invested in the stock market. Remember that? That didn't go so well. Because whichever side of this debate you're on, one thing should be obvious here. Most Americans have almost no idea what's happening underneath the hood of their retirement account. They know how much comes out of their paycheck. They know how much their employer matches. They log in occasionally, maybe manipulate some things every few years. Is the number up or down? But who actually chooses the investments and who's taking on that risk? You are taking on that risk. Someone else is changing the risk for you. Like what fees are being collected? What stocks are you now being invested in that you have almost no control over for your retirement? So I want to talk about this today. That's why I wanted to bring in Mark Wilburn. He's the president of NEO's Capital Development Group. He spent years educating Americans how to better understand the markets, follow where the money is moving, become more active participants in their own financial future.
So you have no choice, right? The choice is already made for you. And that's just it, though. The choice has already been made for you. And once you take the MOTB, that's it. You're through. You know? And everything's moving towards that, where you won't have any access to it. Consider your 401k gone. Anyways, we told you never to invest in a 401k to begin with. But here we go. Here's another one. And this is what's going on in the news, right? God damn it! Slovakia acting up again. Slovakia, the computer's acting up. So I apologize in advance for its blur and commercial interruptions and all that. ESO's got it all fucked up. You know, Amalek's taking over everything, right? With these AI data centers, so they really don't like you watching these videos.
Like I said, the original video I did was about 20 minutes. I didn't even look to see how many minutes the video was. And I didn't realize it. Like I said, I apologize again. Give me a second. Thing is acting up. Okay, I hope you caught all this. I hope you caught everything that I said. Anyway, what I'm going to do is just going to let it play because I'm strapped for time. Got to be somewhere. Let me just go ahead and let it play.
And when this cometh to pass, then show that a prophet hath been among them, that Michael you all will regret for not listening to prophets of great millstone.
We're there now. Did you see what Sam Altman said yesterday? He believes we are now at the singularity. That's when everything changes. That's when everything, you're pulled into this vortex you cannot reverse, and it's going to compound faster and faster and faster and faster. And Sam Altman just said, we're there. Elon Musk said we were there about 6 months ago. If we're there today or tomorrow or in 6 months.
God's using these individuals to make this prophecy come to pass. Prophecy has to come to pass. So he has to set up, put the spirit on certain people to make this thing come to pass. So this is really the Most High. I said this before many times. This is the Most High's technology. The Most High put in the minds of these men to do what he got to do so they can make prophecy happen. Therefore, he can destroy them. He can't destroy them unless they check the mass majority of the people on planet Earth.
So last 6 months, it's here, okay? And it's going to get harder from here. Zuckerberg told investors that a person without AI glasses may be at a significant cognitive disadvantage against the people they work with and compete against.
I ain't wearing those fucking things.
Why? You're at a disadvantage. This is what Ray Kurzweil said about taking a chip. I said, I don't want Ray. He said, Glenn,
there he is.
Chip. I don't want the chip. But Glenn, you can take the chip and you'll be able to speak any language. You'll be able to access who you're talking to, who's on the street. You'll know because you will be one with the internet. And I said, I want to be just me. I don't want that. For me to be one with the internet, it also requires that I not only can get uploads, but it will take downloads as well. No. He said, Glenn, everyone will want it. You will be, excuse the language, it'll be as if you're retarded. You won't be able to function because everyone will have it. You won't be able to function because everyone will have it. You won't be able to function because everyone will have it. This is the product pitch from Zuckerberg. That's the threat delivered as a forecast. Wear it or fall behind.
If most of them, if not all of them, they're small hats.
Wear it or fall behind.
power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak, and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand and on their foreheads. And that no man might buy or sell, save that he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
I'm gonna say this, which I said in the video that didn't come, that I had to delete. You know, we're the ones that been pushing this, so it's getting ready to come to pass. You got these other major camps, let's say 2 major camps, that, judging by what they said on the jump shot, they most likely say the same thing with this. But we'll see if they're part of the elect, they're going to denounce it, they're going to say don't take it, and they're going to say what about GMS correct? And GMS would have to admit that GMS was correct. Captain Zariak, if he's one of the elect, he would have to admit that GMS was correct and that the GMS are the true prophets of the Lord. Because if you're saying that's not the fulfillment of Revelation 13, 16, 17, then that means you're not a prophet, because the prophet's going to, you have an unction from the Holy One. 1 John 2 verse 20, you have an unction from the Holy One and you know all things. So, you know, if you buck up with it a little bit and you did the research, you say, you know, I was wrong, marking pieces of microchip. So as it stands, the Bishop Nate, Nathaniel, and General Yohanan still says that the way we're teaching it is wrong, that conspiracy theorists are nuts. You know, that's they're conspiracy nuts. That's what they called us more than 10 years ago. And we're not conspiracy nuts. We're speaking the truth. And it is a conspiracy, because Esau knows it's the fulfillment of the MOTB. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to make this short. On to the next Shalom. Let's hope this one goes up.
So, like everything else, just been having a lot of problems with the internet feed. Going on to the next, let me cross that out so that way, yep, I knew something would come up. So, going on to the next then, Trump is in a panic because Iran has set its own deadline. You know, because the memorandum of understanding expired yesterday, so Iran has a new deadline set for Trump. And Trump doesn't like not being in control or controlling the narrative, but it's out there that Trump has a 60-day deadline from Iran.
Donald Trump is panicking as Iran has flipped the script and set its own war deadline. Iran is now saying we're not going to sit around and wait as Donald Trump manipulates the market and says a deal is imminent while he continues the blockade on the Persian Gulf, while Iran actually controls the Strait of Hormuz. Iran is saying, if you don't meet our deadline, we are going to go on the offense, because we view your blockade, United States, Donald Trump, as an act of war, and we're putting our Arab nation neighbors on notice that they better rein you in. And if we are unable to do a deal in the next few weeks, is what Iran is saying, that looks exactly like the MOU which you previously signed, then we are going to go on the offense. And Iran has told Reuters what that means. That means it could be cutting some of the internet infrastructure, which resides below the Strait of Hormuz. People forget that. A lot of the critical internet infrastructure connecting the rest of the world with the Middle East is right there under the Strait of Hormuz, and there are very vulnerable cables that you can just cut. And so that's one of the things Iran is saying that their escalation would look like. Iran is also saying that they're not going to rule out occupying American military bases, which have since been abandoned, in places like Kuwait. And they're saying, look, these bases were used against us. We will now escalate by potentially going into Kuwait. And we know the United States has run out of weapons. We know that the U.S. doesn't have its interceptors anymore, and it doesn't even have its offensive capabilities with the attack.
Babylon the Great is
Donald
fallen.
Trump is now rushing to do this 25, 30, 40, $50 billion deal with Raytheon for more Tomahawks, because the U.S. ran out of offensive capabilities as well, and the U.S. has abandoned its bases in the Middle East. So this is what Reuters was reporting this morning. The headline is that Iran threatens to go on the offense if Strait of Hormuz diplomacy fails with the United States. The Iranian official told Reuters Iran will send its own deadline to the U.S. and mediating countries. Meet our demands, which were laid out in the MOU, or else. We're not playing around. Also, we know the Ayatollah has promoted a new group of leadership, most of the same cast of characters we've talked about before, but to additional military leadership positions with the goal of the IRGC having more robust offensive capabilities. This comes at the same time, as the Wall Street Journal reported on Sunday night, Iran's secret plan to escalate the war. Iran's IRGC has finished planning a massive preemptive strike against certain U.S. and Israeli targets in the Middle East in the event the U.S. does not stop its blockade or in the event Donald Trump escalates. Now, Iran kind of preemptively put this message out knowing that Donald Trump would manipulate the market yet again. And that's exactly what Donald Trump did. It's Monday, the market opens. Donald Trump usually goes to either Barak Ravid or Trey Yingst, and both of these individuals are located in Tel Aviv, and they're his main propagandists. So Yingst reports from Tel Aviv, Barak Ravid from Axios also reports from Israel, and they usually pump out a Donald Trump message right on Monday morning before the markets open. Either that or when things get very dire, the Trump regime sends out Treasury Secretary Bessent to go on CNBC, which is a network about the stock market basically and business, and then they manipulate the market that way. So Iran predicted correctly. That's why they got out their stories first, and they put out their warning and their deadline first. So you had Yingst over on state regime media, which calls itself Fox, and here the Fox host says, and Donald Trump has said, after Donald Trump has said every word thereafter is going to be a lie, Donald Trump has said he has opened up a back channel with the IRGC, and they are working closely on doing a deal. And then the IRGC responded and said, nope, that ain't happening. This just reflects how utterly desperate he is. Here's the IRGC statement. This reflects Donald Trump's delusions and nightmares resulting from defeat and desperation in the war. The IRGC says there are no talks between IRGC officials and Americans. This lie from Trump is simple fantasies that he is experiencing due to delusions and nightmares resulting from defeat and desperation in the war. The IRGC communicated this to Tasnim News, which is the Iranian state news network. Trump is trying to temporarily control the price of oil and energy in the world with these statements, but he only has one real path ahead of him, and that is to accept defeat and implement the conditions that Iran has set. The IRGC concluded to Tasnim, the sooner the Americans accept their failure and make decisions based on that, the more they will save their country from greater and more significant losses. So here's Donald Trump talking to a Fox host, and here the Fox host says that Donald Trump told him, we have a back channel with the IRGC. Here, play this clip.
The president about the communication with the Iranians, and interestingly, President Trump confirmed to Fox News that there is a back channel with the IRGC. These are the hardline officials inside of Iran, and that the United States and officials in Washington are speaking directly with IRGC officials in Iran. This is another indication that the Trump administration is not just dealing with the political echelon in Tehran, but also some of those hardliners that have launched attacks against U.S. forces. And then
people are retarded that believe that news.
Despicable behavior. He then says that if Oman gets in the way of a deal with Iran, Donald Trump says, I will blow the shit out of Oman. And again, this is why Donald Trump does not have the temperament, he does not have the emotional maturity, would be saying it so nicely, because it's far worse than that, to be in a position of leadership that impacts the lives of people, yet alone our service members, yet alone the country, yet alone the world. I'm going to blow the shit out of Oman. Oman, really? Because Oman is currently negotiating with Iran right now, not with the United States involvement, regarding the route that will be used in the Strait of Hormuz, not for the United States, but based on Iran's future control of the Strait of Hormuz. And Oman is kind of a neutral party before all of this. They were the mediator selected by the United States back in February to do a deal between Iran and the United States. And the Omani foreign minister did a deal that would have been stronger than even Obama's JCPOA. And then, late February, Donald Trump and Netanyahu invade Iran after the Omani foreign minister announces that a deal was done that was stronger than the JCPOA. So Donald Trump just alienating everyone and now threatening to bomb the shit out of Oman, which plays right into Iran's messaging as well, which is, this is why we need alliances of Arab nations that then work more closely with China and repel the United States from this region. I mean, Trump proves the thesis when he does things like this. Here, play this clip of him saying, we're going to bomb the shit out of them. Here, play this clip.
Now, I asked the president about these parallel talks that are taking place between Iran and Oman about control of the Strait of Hormuz. And the president told Fox News, if Oman gets in the way, we'll bomb the S out of them. We went on to talk about...
And then Donald Trump says, and if Iran doesn't do a deal with us, they need to wave the white flag of surrender. Again, you see how desperate he is. He's been saying this now, raise the white flag of surrender, and they shall be saying, oh, Donald and Allah, we love you. Like, he says the weirdest stuff, Donald Trump, two of the most deranged.
Yep. The lunatics are on the pot, just like the old Pink Floyd song, aka Dark Side of the Moon, and that's where we're at, right? You want to talk about blood moons, and you want to talk about dark side of the moon. Yeah, the sun and the light shall not give her shining. You know, and that's based upon the nuclear war. It's not too far from now. We've been telling you that there was going to be a nuclear war, and that's how Babylon the Great ends, in a nuclear war. America is fucked. And you can see how fucked they are. You know, they just keep on digging further down the poo hole. You know, which Donald Trump does the digging for them. Humanoid war robots could soon patrol U.S. southern border to combat weaponized migrant flows. So it's coming hard on you Jakes, man. Just like they have in Israeli state and other countries. They're going to be using these robots. Fox News reporter spoke with CEO Popnik, who said the U.S.-based startup, which develops humanoid robots for industrial and military applications, has already demonstrated the capabilities of its Phantom Mk1 robots to the Department of Homeland Security for border deployment. So there we go. He's sending these robots, you know. So these, you know, aka Chappie, although not as friendly as Chappie. Yeah, Robocops. These motherfuckers.
Alright, you guys ready back there?
And they know how to use those too, obviously. So there you have it. Coming down having great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time. He's going to get a lot of you Jakes. Better close that out before that interrupts. Like I said, this thing's been acting up this morning. Iran declares 60-day MOU deadline irrelevant amid continued U.S. violations. So in actuality, they say that the U.S. only has weeks to comply with the original Memorandum of Understanding, or Iran's going to go on the offensive, and you already know what that means. Tehran says it's keeping a close eye on developments as D.C. threatens to defeat Iran and take over Hormuz. Yeah, and Trump has already drawn a map. Iran declares 60-day U.S. memorandum deadline irrelevant amid flagrant violations by D.C. And that was then. Yeah. So, Iran's foreign ministry released a statement on the 17th of August declaring the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding 60-day period not relevant as D.C. continues to violate the agreement and threaten the Islamic Republic. Yeah. So here we go. Here's Chop and his rhetoric, right?
And after we finish defeating Iran, which is being very badly defeated.
All these brown noses.
Pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. Essentially, that's what it is. We have the blockade. No ships get through unless we want them to. But, and how about Venezuela? Venezuela was a one-day war. And now we work great with them. We've taken in millions and millions of barrels of oil. But we're doing really good. We're doing good in every way. You know, I built the military,
yeah.
And now I used it.
I really feel it when I go and fill up.
That's okay.
I really feel it when I hit the grocery store.
Iran have a nuclear weapon. Do we agree? Can't let.
Yeah, you see the rhetoric, right? Always the same shit, but on a different day. Blah, blah, blah. IRGC vows to decisively crush any threat, aggression as Iran-U.S. deal expires. That was yesterday. The IRGC issued a statement on Monday commemorating the 36th anniversary of the return of Iranian prisoners of war who were held captive during the 1980s imposed war against the country by former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein. The IRGC said its forces at the current critical juncture are inspired by the self-sacrifice, resilience, and steadfastness of proud Iranian POWs while relying on Almighty Yahweh. They don't call him Yahweh, they call him Allah. And following the directives of leader of the Islamic Republic, Ayatollah Khamenei. So, like everything else, though. August 17 is like a celebration victory day for getting back their POWs held in Iraq. Trump posts map depicting Hormuz as the new U.S. territory after latest tanker attack by Iran. So like everything else, so he's showing you that, okay, that the U.S. is going to own this. Yet another attack occurred in the Strait, this time on a foreign tanker transiting an outbound transit route which Iran and Oman claim to directly oversee and administer according to the terms of Oman deal for managing the Strait, which is still being finalized. So like everything else, so he's now threatening Oman. So there we go, new U.S. territory. This is what Trump has put out. And like everything else, so, well, the empire has collapsed as this video goes into. And like everything else, so, we'll see how good the quality is. So far I'm doing okay, but I don't trust this. It's been acting up.
Oh boy! Donald Trump is now threatening two countries, one of them a major ally, as he's talking about making the Strait of Hormuz a U.S. territory, as former Congresswoman MTG is talking about how he is talking about using nukes! What? Yeah. That's a real thing. We talked about it from the beginning of this. Of course, there's not a lot of other options in the escalatory ladder in the current situation and circumstance, especially with the missile stockpiles being as short as they are, as I think this is an issue worth talking about. There's a lot of crazy things happening right now in the international foreign policy geopolitical space. We've been talking about this story for such a long time. And if you appreciate us being pretty much right on the money, subscribe. Strategy playing out in front of our eyes right now to avoid a big global war with China and to deliberately get rid of the petrodollar? Huh? Okay, we'll get into it. As let's just get into some of the latest events that are happening right now. As Donald Trump went to a lot of our allies and was like, all right, we're bombing Iran now, guys. And all the allies are like, what? We are? I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? What did I do? We're bombing them. No. Big geopolitical international foreign policy drama between the United States and Spain and Europe that has kind of symbolically gestured and has given some maybe defensive help to Bibi. Yeah, Germany and France, I think, had fighter jets that were trying to shoot down some of the drones that were being flown in the area as a part of a defensive effort. But when it comes to the offense, the United States spent a lot of its very precise, significant, expensive stockpiles that now take 5 years to rebuild. As the United States went to South Korea and said, yeah, we need your Patriot missile systems, they took them away from Asia, deployed them in the Middle East, they spent them. There's a big need for them, especially now in Ukraine. Zelensky is becoming very desperate, saying, we need this. As Donald Trump once again came to South Korea, which is a major military industrial complex producer, by the way. I was just in Poland. Poland gets a significant portion of its military hardware, of its tanks, which I don't know what the hell they're doing. They should be just building drones. Like, with the way that war's being fought right now, you don't need any, just drones. That's it, just drones. Drones. If you're going to be smart, right? I don't understand, but Poland has been buying a lot of South Korean hardware from its military-industrial complex, as it's a major powerhouse. As South Korea directly rejected Donald Trump's demand to join the United States in the Iran war and the quote denuclearization of Iran, which Donald Trump is going on and saying is the most important thing ever. He's asked about, hey, Americans are struggling with the affordability crisis. He's like, I really can't have nukes, I don't care. He didn't say it like that, but that's the sentiment that all of us are kind of feeling here as the prices of a lot of things are going up because of the conflict. And some people are saying, hey, this is a deliberate destruction of the dollar, and it's done on purpose. And I made that argument from the beginning of this, because if you're looking from the kind of big view perspective, why is this going on? Because they want to bring in a digital dollar. The rational consensus
the digital
is that this is a deliberate creation of an economic collapse and a pushing of the Great Reset. That's the only thing that can make sense, right? I don't understand it in any other way or context other than just pure chaos in this world, which this war is bringing us closer and closer to. That's what wars do. That's what happens when you start them. That's why a lot of people voted for Donald Trump, because he said he was not going to start them because they didn't want this chaos. They didn't want the bill.
Because they were retarded.
But there might be a bigger thing at play here. As Trump went on Truth Social after South Korea declined and said that he will now reduce military exercises with South Korea that were held every year since 1954. Trump added that he also has a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. What? What? North Koreans, by the way, working on nuclear subs. Yeah. This is why North Korea didn't get invaded. This is why a lot of people are saying, this is why Iran's like paying attention. This is the long perspective here that a lot of people need to understand here. And I'm sorry, because there's so many lessons to learn from all of this. As of course, they're looking at what happened to Saddam. They're looking at what happened to Gaddafi. They're looking at what happened to Bashar al-Assad, right? All these people in one way or another complied and didn't have nuclear weapons. They allegedly were all trying. They didn't have it. Libya, they got rid of the chemical weapons that they had allegedly that the United States gave them before. It's like, how does this all play out in such a weird, crazy way? But from a from the perspective of the Iranians, which no one is taking into consideration, they're showing, oh, North Korea's fine. They have nukes. Everywhere else didn't have nukes. They gave up weapons. Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons. Look what happened to them. Saddam, Gaddafi, Assad, all of them didn't have nuclear weapons. Some of them gave away their weapons in order to have peace. Look what happened. No peace, just war. Right? And look, before we get into more of this stuff, and getting into how J.D. Vance was literally talking about getting rid of the dollar reserve status, the petrodollar, and how all this might be spurred on to make that happen, just really quickly, check out We Are Change Dutch.
So there you go. You heard about it. To get rid of the dollar. Which, not even really an argument. Everybody could see that that's happening. Well, at least the elect do anyways. Right? Most people, they're asleep. They don't understand. Not until they finally start seeing it, right? Pentagon concedes no military plan can secure the strait as Trump seeks scapegoats. Yeah, help us, right? You know, they all told him no because he's an asshole. You know, somebody who raises tariffs is asking for help. Yeah, you know you're going to get the biggest fuck you, and that's what happened. They said, fuck you, fucking bitch. Pentagon concluded that there's no existing military plan that can guarantee the safe passage of shipping through the strait or ensure energy stability in the region, according to regional intelligence. Strait of Hormuz, through with approximately 1/5 of global oil supply passes, has become critical vulnerability for the U.S. amid its war against Iran. Yep, and they caused it. So, like everything else, this is from Press TV.
Responsibly, the Strait of Hormuz. What do you mean by responsibly? The way we preserve our own security, the same way we care about security. Also, the Brazilian farmers' security also matters to us. Security of people in Africa and Europe, that also matters. So in the Strait of Hormuz, we have been acting more responsibly than the U.S. But because they cause insecurity, they do not let the strait be reopened. As soon as they implement the 5 conditions as an introduction based on the MOU, and they already started for 5 years. If they do so, this means a change in their behavior. It could be a signal.
So there you go. And like everything else, though, you know. Yeah, Trump threatens to bomb the shit out of Oman over its talks with Iran. President Trump on Monday threatened to bomb the shit out of Oman over the Gulf states' talks with Iran on the strait, despite U.S. officials previously backing Moscow's efforts to reach a deal with Tehran. Back in May, Trump threatened to blow up Oman if the country reached a deal with Iran that would involve joint control with Iran over the strait. So he's been threatening it for some time. He's just doubling down on it now. But he threatened that months ago. No surprise, right? More rhetoric. Is Yemen's endless war serving a U.S.-Israeli agenda? How rhetorical is that? Of course it is. That's the only reason why Saudi Arabia you can consider the larger version of the Israeli state. D.C. and Tel Aviv appear comfortable in the back seat, shaping the conflict's boundaries, while others bear its costs. For years, the war against Yemen has been a conflict in search of a victor. Slovakia. This makes Yemen an ideal test of an idea advanced by U.S. strategist Edward Lukács in his 1999 essay, Give War a Chance, later applied to Syria in 2013. Not every cessation of war constitutes peace, and every victory produces a desirable outcome. Well, you got ISIS running Syria. Well, you already see that ISIS is in Yemen. You've seen all those shady marks across the map, and you see how much Saudi Arabia controls, right? A coalition to take over. Well, only thing is though is that you do have the Houthis in a small area, but they sure are fucking them up, and they hate that. Sometimes the strategist's interest lies in ensuring no side prevails, preserving a balance that prevents any party from defeating the others, such as Syria. Lutwyck argued that a government victory would strengthen Iran, while its collapse would open the way for uncomfortable jihadists as perceived by the Israeli state, and the U.S. making an indefinite draw the optimal U.S. outcome. Well, like everything else, you know, you might have an ISIS-run Syria, but at the same time, though, you know, what did you get out of it? Well, they're not helping. Yep, they're not going to go to war with Hezbollah, because guess what? You've weakened them. Yeah, he that's weakened the nations, right? Who's that talking about? Esau, right? Yeah, it's so weak it can't help you. Yep, and none of your allies will help you, right? Houthis claim drone attack against Aramco refinery in Saudi Arabia, so like everything else, so, you know, the Houthis are destroying the shit out of Saudi Arabia and its infrastructure, you know. So without that, they ain't got nothing. You know, without their oil, and they can't sell it, they ain't got shit. They ain't fucking shit. Yemen's Houthi group claimed Tuesday that it targeted an Aramco refinery in Saudi Arabia's southwestern Jazan region with several drones. Military source told Houthi-run Saba news agency that the attack was carried out in response to what the group described as violations of Yemeni airspace of the provinces of Sada and Hajjah. Source claimed the drones accurately hit the refinery. There's been no immediate comment from the Saudi authorities on the Houthi claim. And so, like everything else, though, continued humiliation while the Israeli state is grabbing more land in Syria and Lebanon. Israeli flags on southern Lebanon highway fuel fears of permanent occupation. Israeli flags and demolitions across southern Lebanon are fueling anger and questions over whether Israeli security zone is becoming a permanent occupation. Of course it's an occupation. Do you have to even question that? Israeli flags planted along Main Side Road inside southern Lebanon, as you can see there. Figure out where I'm at. Main arteries and a route regularly used by UN peacekeepers. You mean war makers? Because that's what they do. Israeli state claims the zone is necessary to protect its own communities from Hezbollah. Right. Yeah, that's what they always say. They're nothing but terrorists. These goddamn fucking gutter rats. Kushner Netanyahu meeting ends with agreement that Israeli state will keep bombing Gaza. Well, I'm glad that they agreed upon that, right? You know, because like everything else, though, you know, Kushner and King Bibi shows you how close the U.S. and the Israeli state are. You may as well call it the United States of Israel, because that's what many people see it as. Meeting between Israeli Prime Minister King Bibi and President Trump's son-in-law, Kushner, longtime family friend of the Israeli terrorists, ended with an agreement that the Israeli state will continue so-called targeted strikes against Gaza. So, there we go. Go ahead, bomb the shit out of them, just like you're going to bomb the shit out of Oman. Israeli warplanes bombed Syrian airbase hours after Turkish military visits. So, well, they're at war with Turkey and Syria too, so that's no wonder. Israeli warplanes reportedly struck a decommissioned military airport in northwestern Syria early Tuesday, just hours after Turkish military delegation visited the site to access the restoration of its runways. Sources added that the strikes caused material damage to the airport's runway and no injuries reported. Informed sources say the Israeli attack came hours after Turkish military officials inspected the site as part of initial plans to rehabilitate its runways. Oh no, don't you do that. Israeli state says no. And you have to do what the Israeli state tells you. You know, you do what they tell you. And so, like everything else, though, you know, I got one more video here where Marjorie Taylor Greene tells you that, yes, it is in the plans to nuke the shit out of Iran, that they're going to use nuclear weapons against Iran. You know, you already heard about the one mountain. Well, they're planning to use nuclear weapons because it's the only options left. Which leads me right here, as you can see, all the players involved, you know, surrounding Damascus and that region there, right? Syria and Iraq, aka Babylon in Asia, you know, which is dealing with ancient Iraq, because that's ancient Babylon it's talking about. Syria and Egypt, right? You know, in modern day Egypt is Edom. Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 20. Therefore hear what the Most High has planned against Edom, and what he has purposed against those who live in Teman, aka America. Young of the flock will be dragged away. Their pastor will be appalled by their fate. You know, so basically, like everything else, so the fate of who? The fate of Amalek. These Amalekites. You know, this is from the NIV. At the sound of their fall, the earth will tremble. Their cry will resound to the Red Sea. You know, so this is a worldwide earthquake that you're going to hear when the bombs and missiles hit everything. You know, it's going to cause a major earthquake. The axis is going to be off for a while. America will become a lake of fire, and so will the surrounding areas of Damascus, Syria. Concerning Damascus, Hamath and Arpad are dismayed, for they have heard bad news. They are disheartened, troubled like the restless sea. Damascus has become feeble. She has turned to flee, and panic has gripped her. Anguish and pain have seized her, pain like that of a woman in labor. So basically, you know, that's because of the destruction. Why has the city of renown not been abandoned, the town in which I delight? Surely her young men will fall in the streets, and all her soldiers will be silenced in that day, declares Lord Yahweh Almighty. You know, and that is because, you know, it's an end to them. I will set fire to the walls of Damascus, and it will consume the fortresses of Ben-Hadad, aka the kingdom of Syria. So, this is coming. This is not too far from now. So, a lot of this war is going to actually hit Syria, which is, I believe, that a lot of Amalek is going to be there in Syria, because you see who's grabbing land all the time. You know, we keep reading about it. So, this is not too distant of a future. And of course, they're ushering in their New World Order. Got one more here where, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene, you know, giving warning to Trump about using nukes against Iran, because she's already heard their plan. And she knows that it's a very bad idea. Make sure that's up. Alright. So hopefully it's been edifying for them to say, Bracha the Yahweh, Bracha the Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem Rekakadash, Wa Abba Babal. Brakatam, Jehovah Elect, Shalom.
Former top ally and supporter Marjorie Taylor Greene is warning that she believes Donald Trump intends to use nuclear weapons, that Donald Trump intends to use a nuclear weapon on Iran, and that Donald Trump may use nuclear weapons against other countries as well. This, as Donald Trump has said that he wants to resume nuclear weapons testing, and as Elbridge Colby, the number 2 at the Department of Defense, has in a classified briefing recently, it's been revealed, talked about increasing the U.S. tactical nuclear capabilities, and I think that's also where Marjorie Taylor Greene is getting this from, but she says that she's hearing from people very close to Donald Trump, people who are MAGA or used to be MAGA, that Donald Trump really wants to use nuclear weapons. Here's what she posted. They are discussing using nuclear weapons on Iran in strategy meetings. Yes, you read that correctly. It's real. I'm not speculating. I know. And it's pure evil. The last time a nuclear weapon was used was August 9th and 9th of 1945 on 2 cities in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, immediately killing 110,000 people, vaporizing people at ground zero, and total deaths reached 214,000 by the end of the year from severe burns and trauma. But the extreme suffering continued for the Japanese people, from radiation sickness, skyrocketing cancer rates, and generational birth defects, not to mention wiping out all means of their economy. And the suffering was so great that all of humanity vowed never again. Trump and his administration were told by our own intelligence that Iran was nowhere near creating a nuclear weapon. Then Israel said the same line it's repeated for decades. Iran is only weeks away, so we bombed anyways, killed their leaders and innocent little children in a school, and Iran has controlled the Strait of Hormuz ever since and punished the region for their part in it. One thing I do want to mention, we often talk about the Trump regime's war crimes in Manab, where 168 little girls were slaughtered by U.S. Tomahawk missiles, but the U.S. engaged in numerous other war crimes. They bombed a gym early on in the war, killing 17 girls playing volleyball, and there were numerous other instances of war crimes that were committed. Marjorie Taylor Greene then says, so we bombed anyways, killed their leaders and innocent little children in a school, and Iran has controlled the Strait of Hormuz ever since and punished the region for their part in it. Now our government is the one actually discussing lowering the nuclear threshold in order to use nuclear weapons against Iran. even though Trump claims he's won the war like 40 times and says the U.S. controls the Strait of Hormuz. Trump promised no more foreign wars that may actually be the one who delivers a nuclear holocaust that would likely drag the entire world into major conflict, economic depression, and mass human suffering we've never seen in our lifetimes and maybe throughout history. People need to speak out boldly to stop this insanity. America is not untouchable. If and when that happens, everyone, and I do mean everyone, will hold all of those leadership right now fully responsible for the rest of human history. Do not use nuclear weapons and stop this war now.
But the war will not be stopped. It ends with America being destroyed by nuclear war. And you can see that Damascus, Syria, is one of the major keys as to what starts the nuclear war. So hopefully this has been edifying. Barak Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahushai, Ba'Hashem Rakakadash, Wa Abal Babal. Brakatam, Jehovah Olak.